Hello, once again, everyone. I'm your host, Ray Shasho. Welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends. Fans of dark and ghoulish rock and roll are all cordially invited to attend what is sure to be the biggest party of the year's Halloween season, Monsters Ball, the new album from the one and only God of Hellfire and theatrical rock visionary Arthur Brown. For his latest macabre-themed masterpiece, Brown is joined by a murderer's row of talented co-conspirators, including the album's producers, Alan Davey, who also co-wrote several of the songs, and our friend, Fernando Perdomo, all of whom have helped Brown craft one of the most energetic and thrilling albums of his long and distinguished career. From the Stooges guitarist James Williamson, who brings the heat on a new version of Brown's iconic 1968 hit Fire, to the killer collaboration with Vanilla Fudge's Mark Stein on zombie Yelp. Monsters Ball promises to be one hell of a good time. Please welcome legendary singer, songwriter of the crazy world of Arthur Brown and Kingdom Come, the God of Hellfire, Arthur Brown, to Interviewing the Legends. Hello, Arthur.
Yeah, hello.
There he goes. You know, let me tell you, you turned 80 years old this year. Your voice is still incredible. And I don't know how you do it, man, but I've noticed a lot of male rock vocalists. I've noticed like Ian Gillan, he can't hit the high notes anymore. A lot of women can still do it, but men can't do it. How do you do it? You're incredible.
It's hormone treatment, you know. If I take a large one, I can go. It's just for me that was quite a natural thing. I listened to a lot of gospel, James Brown, and
right.
High screamers that didn't do they didn't really use it as a lead vocal, but they would put it in there as a punctuation. I started to use it as a lead vocal, and I had just taken classical singing lessons, and I had learned how, a bit more about breathing and relaxing the throat.
Right.
And with those high notes and the you have to learn to relax, otherwise you've lost the voice. And so for me, that became natural after torturing a lot of people with learning how to do it. And then also, I like to keep fit. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of chopping and walking. Chopping wood, which is a very good workout.
Right.
And I sing and I do practice. So I think all of that together, coupled with the love of a beautiful woman.
There you go.
My partner and manager and creative director.
Wow. How long have you been together?
Well, I've known her for about 10 years. And
right.
We've been together about 6.5.
So where did you guys meet?
We met in Lewes in England, in Sussex. It's near Brighton.
Right.
And she had her own adventurous restaurant there. And I met her because she was the proprietor, and I went in and was introduced there by some artists. And it went on from there.
Very cool. Yep. I got to tell you, man, all these years, people always focus on your theatrics, but me, I always notice what a great singer you were and are. And you can sing any genre. I mean, if you wanted to sing Tom Jones, you can sing Tom Jones.
Yeah, actually, there was one time where I was being approached by the people who managed Tom and Engelbert.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went on to Kit Lambert,
Right.
also saying, well, look, uh, this, he, he said all of this alternative music, this hippie stuff, flash in the pan. What you've got to do is you can go down and do that at the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to have to wear a false beard, sideburns, and a wig,
Okay.
because we want you to cut all your hair off and become a lounge. We've got a bright future for you as a lounge singer.
Right.
And I said, I don't think you understand. No, I like the crazy world. It's,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Gordon Mills, right? That was their manager, Gordon Mills.
That was their manager.
Yeah.
And they had, a couple of other people involved with putting together that whole scene for the artist. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm glad you did what you did, of course, because you influenced so many other rock legends, man. Of course, we all know that. The Alice Coopers and Kiss and Peter Gabriel and all those guys. I've noticed especially Peter Gabriel, because a lot of his masks in the early days were your masks, basically, your look.
He did say that whilst I hadn't been a huge direct influence on his musical side,
right?
On the performing side, yeah,
definitely, yeah.
And so and there was a one that I was not aware of until Julian, my English son, said, "I've just read this interview with George Chisholm."
Mm-hmm.
And he says that his whole thing with his stage act and the kind of lyrics was started off by his whole style, which had been doo-wop, was
right.
going out. He came over to England to the UFO club and saw me light my head on fire and shout, "I'm the God of Hellfire." And he said that showed me just what was possible to do. Didn't have to have a limit on your imagination.
Exactly. Yeah. And you push the envelope for sure. And you still are.
I keep trying.
I got to tell you, man, I listened to Monsters Ball and also your latest solo album as well, both of them. Long Road, which I love, by the way. I gave both albums 5 stars. They're incredible.
Wow. Thank you.
Monsters Ball's got so many great artists on there. I love Lucifer Sam with Ian Pace. Steve Hillage has been on the show. He's a great guy. He loves world music, and so do I.
Yeah.
He turned me on to some Syrian music because my dad's background was Syrian. But Lucifer Sam, that's a Syd Barrett written tune. Did you know Syd by any chance?
Well, we down in the UFO club,
right?
It was basically, as far as repeated performances there, it was Pink Floyd, Soft Machine, ourselves, and one other I can't really remember now. But so Syd was playing at that time, and so you do get to hang out a little.
Sure.
And there, what was good about that whole situation, because you also had the nice, Keith Emerson, whose experiments with sound sonically was up there with the Floyd at that time.
Right.
And the fact that Syd was not into necessarily writing songs with the structures being like a normal song. And I think this one has a definite strangeness to it in the structure.
Mm-hmm.
I admire that, and of course you listen to them because they're playing there, and everybody's listening to everybody else, and
Right.
everybody influenced everybody else in that
Exactly.
scene. It was great.
It's a great cover, man. You did a wonderful job on that. I love it, and not many people bring that back, that song.
No, I've not heard any recent covers at all.
Not at all. Screaming Ball at Dracula's Hall, Alan Davey, great intro. Alan Davey, of course, the former bassist with Hawkwind, who you had a lot of association with in the past.
Yeah, he was playing bass. He was very loud. I used to move, to the other side of the stage because he liked to play loud. He's a great bass player, and we wrote a couple of songs together then. Got on very well, and I know he lives over there now in I think he's still in Death Valley.
In Death Valley, yeah.
Yeah, and lovely. I really enjoyed working with him.
Then you did a cover of The Who, I Feel Free. I'm sorry, Cream. I don't know why I said Who.
Yeah.
I Feel Free, with James Williamson, who's been on the show. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
And a band called the Ratscabies. Well, Ratscabies is a drummer, I think, but with the English punk band, The Damned, which was an interesting combination there.
Yeah. But I think, Brian Pereira of Cleopatra Records, who put out this album, has a very, very good way of working. He likes to take, say, an artist like myself, and then get a producer, and then just bring other people in, and then it develops slowly. And of course, with it being lockdown when it was made, it was all through long distance recordings rather than everybody getting into the studio. And I thought it came up with a lot of good things because of it. A lot more variety than you would have got if you just had the same people with one or two coming in, Well, course, there were a couple of songs there at the beginning of the album.
Right.
When it was first, I did with the psychobilly Danny B. Harvey. We wrote a couple together. The one about the gremlin was one we wrote, and so it's been very interesting. Also, one of the tracks was produced by Jürgen Engler of Die Krupps, who once, after getting me to do a duo with him and and the rest of Die Krupps, on Fire, had me strapped to the front of an express train. And you can see my mouth going. But
I noticed the album is very well produced and engineered. It's got a great quality to it.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that Brian encourages, and he loves he loves a lot of different things.
Right.
But the Hawkwind bracket of sound,
exactly,
which Alan has moved into an even more ethereal region with a lot of guts in it. So he brought Alan into it, and it's something he loves as well. Brian Pereira and John Lappin is the one who will listen to all the tracks and talk you through the history of music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zombie Yelp. That when was Zombie
That's
Yelp?
it.
When was that recorded? Because Mr. Albrighton was on that, who passed away, right, in 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I think that the Zombie Yelp was actually one that I wrote
right.
with Danny B. Harvey
Mm-hmm.
originally,
Okay.
and then it's got shifted around and all sorts. Um, and so I put my vocal on it at the beginning of the COVID thing.
Mm-hmm. That's a great song. Mark, of course, Mark's on that. Mark Stein from Vanilla Fudge.
Yeah, yeah, we played with him many times actually, and
Mhm.
always very exciting and eccentric performance from Mr. Stein or Stein.
Yeah. Those guys never get old, just like you. You know, Mark and Carmine, I mean, those guys never get
Oh
old.
no, no, they won't do it. Uh, and I noticed this morning on the radio there's a guy who's 86 who's just got nominated for uh, a book award with the Booker award system, and
Really?
that's quite amazing at 86. And they said, "Well, do you think you've got another one after that coming up?" And he said, "Yes, unfortunately." You can't stop if you
You
can't
can't.
stop.
Well, that's what keeps you young, just like you. Your
Yeah,
music, man. You
yeah.
know?
Well, I the present show that we have,
Hmm.
which includes, of course, some of from the Prophecy album,
Right.
uh, the Long Long Road. We do that song, and we do also one called Going Down, which
Mhm.
is
Yeah,
mirrored to the old Crazy World stuff.
exactly.
Um, and yeah, that what we have the what was after Crazy World, it went into or got into electronics and ended up, you know, pioneering the drum machine
That's right.
as and we also had a visual show with that. This current one that
Hmm.
I've got now, which is called a human perspective,
Hmm.
um, is a multimedia show
Huh.
which can now do what we wanted to do in 1972,
Wow.
but the technology hadn't got there yet.
Hadn't been there yet. Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's what we've done is taken songs from throughout my career,
Right.
including some new ones that have
Hmm.
not been recorded yet, and some of the new albums, and
Yep.
there'll be at least one from the Monsters Ball on there. Um, and it's the visual show is absolutely stunning, and that's Claire that I was telling you about earlier.
Yeah.
Uh, is the guiding light of that and keeps
Very
the
cool.
and so it's a yeah it's that's those kind of challenges because there's stuff that uh, is quite new in there. Um, that's what keeps me going.
Some of the other tracks on the album I want to mention, "Whistling Past the Graveyard." Um, that Tom Waite. That's a Tom Waite cover, right? And
Yeah,
was it Screaming Jay Hawkins? Did he do that also
yeah,
originally?
he
Or?
did a cover of it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
great tune, man. That's awesome. I
But
love it. You
it's
do it so
it's
well.
really actually kind of blunt, but very spooky.
Very
And,
spooky.
and that's a nice pedigree, Screaming Jay and
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
yeah.
And of course, you do "Fire," your huge hit with James Williamson, Brian Augers on that track as well. and
one of
Carmine.
my favorite keyboard players there.
Yeah.
At the time when Vincent Crane of the Crazy World was going big, Brian was more the music, although he had the, Wheels on Fire with Julie Driscoll singing.
Right.
A lot of it, he was jazzier and into world musicians, and so he was one of my favorite. Keith Emerson, those were the ones that were around when, and of course, in that sense, the granddaddy of all those, Graham Bond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was quite an amazing, amazing man.
You know, a lot of people don't know this, and correct me if I'm not right, but the original Fire track didn't have guitars or bass. Is that right?
That's true.
Yeah.
It was because we were a a sort of very eccentric band,
Mm-hmm.
and I was singing songs that were not the kind of song that were popular at all in those days.
Right.
Nowadays, you've got the market that developed from them, those kind of songs, and so we only did a few gigs, over the years,
Right.
and so keeping down the personnel was a way of being able to afford to keep going.
Exactly.
So that we didn't get paid a lot,
Right.
and we could afford a big band. I
Yep.
would have probably had a big soul type band, but so what happened was Vincent played Hammond, and he also played bass pedals. So that was the bass, and the amplification in those days was not very developed.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't get a loud thing. The drummer could equally play as loud as the full upturn of a Hammond.
Yep.
And then we had Dracian on drums, Dracian Thika, who he had a full collection of the African drum styles. He also played occasionally with the Scottish Symphony Orchestra as a percussionist, and was the tabla player of choice of the Indian musicians who were coming up, which at that time they were still playing restaurants and things.
Right.
But it meant that we had quite a large palette of rhythms coming from Dracian, and we could, coupled with the costumes and all of that, made for a show that people would.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, have just said, not exciting enough. We need the guitars and the bass and
Exactly. Yeah. But you know what? Also, the top 40, the 45 sound quality back in the 60s, you can't match that today. With the echo chamber thing in the background. I mean, they were crisp, clear, and you can't repeat that. It was great.
No, and we had, the demo was made by Pete Townsend, and there's somewhere some of the songs from the album with him playing guitar, but nobody knows where they are.
Huh.
But then in came Kit Lambert as well as the producer,
right?
And he loved to, stand there and then just push all the sliders up until all the buttons were in red, and the machine was shaking, and then. I remember with Fire, Dracian said, well, it sounds really, tinny and weak. What you need is a backwards kick drum. And so Lambert, and in those days, there weren't any samplers or anything like that.
Right.
So Lambert used to make fun of Dracian. And so he used to call him the psychedelic gypsy. And he said, well, you psychedelic gypsy, how on earth are we going to record that? and Dracian said, just put on the track backward and I'll play with it. And Lambert said, we'll be here for a year. So he said, just put it on. And he played it, and the first take was perfect.
Amazing.
And so at the end of the single, you got this electronic, instead of with a kick drum,
right?
The immediate punch comes right at the front, and then it tails off a bit. This turned the other way, and that's why you get such a heavy ending on it. The studio was used as a means of just having fun and experimenting by that team, by the track record team that also did Hendrix and the Who.
Yeah,
It was a great time for that.
Not only was the song great, but the quality of the sound is what really made it, back in the day. It really stood out. Yeah.
And also the Lambert took the record over before adding some of the extras, and the American company that they were putting it out through said, well, our fans aren't going to like these rhythms. We're not sure. So Kit came back and he said, look, Vincent, you're classically trained and you can conduct and you can write for orchestra. So I want you to arrange that song. So he put in the trombones and all of this, and it made the song into a different piece. And Lambert, because his father was a classical composer of note, was well into and accustomed to dealing with those tones and electronic tones as well. So that came out in the way that the sound came out on the record.
But Fire reached #2 in the U.S., right behind Hey Jude. The top 100 for the year, it was also way up there. I mean, the competition back in, I remember 68 like it was yesterday. I have a great memory, man. And in the 70s, I became a top 40 DJ in the late 70s because I love top 40 so much. But 68 was such a great year for music, It really was.
It was. And I think it was almost a sort of turning point year as well. The end of the coming in of a much harder sound.
Exactly, the Zeppelins and people like that, I guess.
Yeah.
But I still love the top 40 era. I had a lot of those guys on the show, like Mason Williams, who finished 43. You finished on top of Mason on classical gas. I've had Bobby Goldsboro on the show, who was like in the top 5. I had the lead singer from the Lemon Pipers on the show, from Green Tambourine, all those guys, and you beat out, listen to this, you beat out, the list goes on, man. You beat out the Rolling Stones' Jumpin' Jack Flash, Light My Fire by Jose Feliciano, which was huge. Pictures of Matchstick Men from Status Quo, Blue Cheer. I mean, the list goes on. Lady Madonna, you beat Lady Madonna from the Beatles. And Tom Jones, you beat Tom Jones. Delilah, which was a huge hit, man.
Oh yes, it became one of the great favorites, didn't it? I mean,
it did.
Yeah, and it's been nice to see Tom Jones doing different kind of material very late in life. I thought it was really neat that he did that, and all points to his management as well.
You guys are about the same age, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he must be 80, 81 or something like that.
Yeah. Well, the album is incredible. I just want to mention a couple of more. One track really baffled me. I had no idea about this. Let's see. The track is called, hold on a minute, if I can find it. Anyway, yeah, The Monster Hop, which was written by Bert Convy. I did not know that. That's crazy. How did you find that?
I didn't find that one. Brian found it, or it's probably in conjunction with John Lappin as well. They worked
right.
together on those things. Yeah, and
Mr. Game Show host, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy. And you had Shuggie Otis, who, of course, made the big hit for the Brothers Johnson. He made a big hit with them, but he's great player, you know.
Yeah.
It was way back. Yeah. You had him on the track.
Well, I think it's true to say that Brian has many artists who are always interested in something that if Brian suggests it. And so he will bring together a lot of different artists.
Very cool. I like that.
Knowing the style and the possibility of, you know, reaching into different territories of the different artists.
Very smart. Very smart. Yeah. And here's a new genre. Scary prog music. Late Last Night. That's scary prog music. That's got Steve Hillage from Gong, of course.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, I like the idea of
scary prog. Yeah. I like that. You invented it.
Yeah, well, then I'll have to learn how to do arpeggios in my up on the.
You got a bonus track on the CD, Carnival, number 9. And I mean, Jordan Rudess, he does an incredible Keith Emerson impression on that, doesn't he? He was really good on that.
Yeah. And I had this, what was it now, 2 years ago, they, Yes, Asia, and the Carl Palmer's legacy band went on tour, and Carl took me with him, and the song that I opened with was Carnival Mine.
That made sense.
So that's how I knew how to sing it, and and it is a spooky song.
It is.
That would fall in, I think, with the prog rock.
I think so, definitely. I have a suggestion for you to do a cover tune in the future, maybe. Have you ever heard Jim Stafford's Swamp Witch?
No, I haven't.
Play it. That sounds like something you could do. It would be really cool.
I'm going to write it down.
Jim Stafford, Swamp Witch. I could definitely hear you doing that. It's really cool. It used to be one of my favorite songs. It was a top 40 hit back in, I want to say 73, I think, something like that. 72 or 73.
Well, I'll certainly check it out. And while you're on that, your suggestions have woken the possibility of doing a prog rock horror version of Delilah. Why?
Yeah, Tom Jones can get a little scary with his voice too, you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
That's a good idea, actually. It's a very good idea. I like to hear that. Arthur Brown does Tom Jones scary. I like that.
Tom Jones on 42 bottles of scotch.
Did you like horror movies growing up as a kid, or no?
I remember going to see one of them with oh, what was the woman, the old woman who came, who acted and did all of those terrible parts.
Joan Crawford.
Yes, but
Yeah.
I remember one film, and I think she was in that, and
Hmm.
people were at dinner table and they were eating, and suddenly this clawed, hairy hand came through the plate, through the table, and there was nothing on the other side, but it got bigger and bigger, and that gave me some terrifying moments for a few weeks. I sit down to dinner and like,
One show gave me nightmares. I was scared as a kid, but usually I don't get scared with those kind of movies. They don't do anything to me. The Outer Limits was a scary show. You
oh
remember
yes,
that?
yes. And
That freaked me out.
did you read another one called the Red Planet?
The Red Planet. Yeah.
Yeah, that was scary as well. Sometimes I used to have to walk home uh, across a river, bridge, and there were no lamplights or anything. So
Right.
I'd go through this avenue of trees and bushes, and one night somebody leapt out dressed in a cloak and went. So that made that. Then when I thought of Red Planet, I always thought of that guy jumping out of the bushes.
Yeah, my dad used to scare the crap out of me. He used to hide in closets and stuff like that. I got him back, though.
How did you get?
I want to mention to everybody that they need to buy Long Long Road as well, because that's a well polished album. I love it a lot. It's a great it's different, very very different. Gas Tanks is one of my favorite tracks on that album.
Yes, yeah, that's right at the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah, right at the beginning.
It's a thing that I think Vincent Crane would love to have
Hmm.
played. The organ styling in it is incredible, and
Yep.
that guy who did all the instruments, Rick
Hmm.
Patton,
Yeah,
is
exactly.
amazing.
All the
Nobody's
instruments on
ever,
the album. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
and
incredible.
nobody's ever heard of him,
No,
but he's amazing.
but you find
He
people like that. You do put people on your album that a lot of people have never heard of too.
yeah. I kind of meet them, and then if we get to be friends, I don't see why they shouldn't go on the album.
Why
It's
not?
good, obviously, to get people that are known and that are brilliant, but the people who are unknown and brilliant are equally,
Yeah,
yeah.
I thank you for that because a lot of people don't do that today. I do it. I bring a lot of people from like Germany, from Norway. I hear them on some prog stations like Morrow.com, and then I invite them over, and I
Oh,
toot their
lovely. Yeah,
horn.
that's
Yeah,
great.
because
Yeah,
there's a lot of
because
good
then
music over there.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Norway has also an incredible folk scene
Yes.
for Western European folk as well. It's not
Exactly.
just the
Exactly.
Scandinavian stuff. But yeah, I think that's great that you do that
Yeah.
because it brings a whole wave of music that people might otherwise not hear.
Exactly. And I'm a big fan of world music too, and the different instruments from all over the world. I love it. I really
Oh
do.
yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
I want to read some lyrics to show the people how clever you are from Coffin Confession. Come out of the toilet with your hands up and put down the bag of crisps, or it's curtains for you. I loved you once, but I just can't stand your politics. Take me to your, was it boudoir? Boudoir?
Yeah, yeah.
Your scented breath has guaranteed my return. Here from my coffin as I open the lid, seeing the surprised faces of all relatives and their disappointment that I shall still live to spend all of my money. I mean, how poetic is that? That's incredible. How do you come up with this stuff, man?
Well, I haven't a clue, and that one came out all as one lump. Just Rick and I were recording, just having some fun, and just in fun, I started off, and there it came out, and then we said, "Oh, we'll put that on there."
I could never come up with those lyrics. That's wow. Those are great, man.
Come up with your own ones, the kind that terrified your father.
Yeah, there you go. And you mentioned Going Down on this track. That's a great track, by the way, Going Down. That's a heavy rocker. Your voice is unbelievable on that tune.
Yeah, let rip on that one.
Oh, yes, you did. But, you know, you just scared me. You did your job. But it's an eclectic album because you have some songs on there that not only that, but you have blues. You have some great blues tracks. You're a great blues singer, by the way.
Well, that was one of the points of the album called
Right.
A Long, Long Road. It's not only because I'm, 80, but also the long road from the beginning of the styles that and the influences that I had. And the early influences, Presley, of course, and everything, but that led to the blues, and I blues and soul and gospel. I love the intensity of the gospel, and everything, and so we decided that the long road will take the reference back,
right,
so that people can hear, oh, that is blues, and he sings, oh well, there's a movement from that, that it's my roots, put it that way.
You got 3 incredible blues tracks on the album that I love. I Like Games, with the opening harmonica, Shining Brightness, another blues rocker, and of course the blues and Messing Around. I mean, those are, to me it sounds like the old blues guys back in the early days. That's how good they are. Your voice is incredible.
Well, I kind of when I first discovered the proper blues, one of my earliest was Lightning Hopkins. And then John Lee Hooker, because he made stuff up as he went. His rhythms they weren't locked in. They went all over the place. And then, also Buddy Guy, and Howlin' Wolf, who brought a lot of African village styles into rock and roll. I mean, you can go to the old villages and you can hear some of the basic rhythm tracks that he listened to when he was a kid. Probably.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Huh.
And I was influenced by all those guys, and the way how they fit their voices into the rhythms and made the melodies, and how the melodies developed. That was the basis of my style, as well as soul music.
How about you and Buddy Guy do an album together, a blues album together? Huh?
Is he still going?
Yeah, he still tours and everything. He's still huge here, man.
That would be wonderful, because golly, his guitar playing is, well, I know it was one of the main sources of Hendrix's style, but also his singing was incredible.
Yeah, but if you and Buddy did an album together, it would win a Grammy Award. I'm telling you, it would win a blues Grammy Award.
I would have to do a version of his song, "The First Time I I met the blues. I was wandering, don't you know? I was wandering from tree to tree.
That's incredible, man. Your voice, somebody's got a good voice when he sings great without any effects, just belting it out there, it's amazing. You're unbelievable, man.
Well,
You really are. I've always said that.
well, thank you. Thank you.
Sometimes it gets, like I said, sometimes it gets covered up by the theatrics, and it shouldn't, because your voice to me is your big selling point, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think in the early bands where we would improvise a lot, Crazy World, 50% of what we did was improvised.
Right.
You come to moments in doing that, and I still do, where, okay, I've used up all the things I know. I've done that tonight. Let's say I've been to for an hour. I've done it. I've got to do I don't want that now.
Yep.
And you just jump off into something that you've never done before, and then the following night you get to the same. You say, "Remember that? Let's go in that direction." And you try and sing the same. It won't be the same, of course, but it has a leaning in a different direction. And so, yeah, I still love doing that.
Even an R&B album would be cool from you, devoted to all the R&B.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
There's the old R&B. Well, you'd have your different styles, wouldn't you? The Coasters, which is quite an amazing band. And then the other ones like early Ike Turner things. And then James Brown's R&B. Yeah, there's so many different ones that it's amazing freedom you get.
Yeah.
If you can do a set of that, you can do so many different styles.
That's right. Exactly
all
right.
fits together because the charts were not all sounding the same.
They weren't. Not at all. I liked. I would have liked to seen a scream off between you and Wilson Pickett, because he had it. He had it down pat too, didn't he?
He could do that. Yeah, yeah. I was listening to him a few months ago, particularly on that point. I thought, and sometimes you don't necessarily notice that about the tunes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna wait.
Amazing, man.
Yes.
The other guy too, Edwin Starr. Like in War.
Oh, yes.
He could really belt out a tune too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could do War. I could hear you doing War. That would fit right into with what's going on in Russia and Ukraine, man. Man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the long road.
Yeah, that's right.
Long road. Yeah.
I want to mention one last track on the long road. Once I Had Illusions. That's a beautiful song. You got part 1 and part 2, and that's another track that really surprised me. I mean, that's a powerful track.
Yeah, it it comes from that early blues style, which I think is, in its simplicity, it's close to a gospel thing, kind of structure, and it's got that depth of low down, dirty feeling.
Right. Yeah. I'm telling you, man, you can do any genre. It's amazing. You're so very talented.
I did do on one album a ballad, and yeah, but I think when I sing whole sets.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the theatrical presentation allows me to get into um, dramatic styles of singing that possibly wouldn't work without it.
Right. You also have another side to you, educational wise. Um, you got a master's degree in counseling, right? A long time
Yeah,
ago, and
yeah.
you're extremely well educated. Uh, wow. You know, another side to you, a lot of people don't know.
No, I eventually, after doing that, decided, well, I um, my sort of gift is in music, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well, how do I do that with what I learned in, counseling, etc. And yeah, with a friend who was on the same, we got the same qualifications as I did.
Right.
We invented this way of counseling people through uh, improvised songs, and not anything that was a repeated structure, just whatever came out in the moment. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was a bit like Fritz Perls' kind of counseling free form.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did was in those days, if you recorded something,
Mm-hmm.
you'd end up having a cassette, a little
Right.
cassette. So
Right.
we'd record it as I was singing it, and then uh, because my friend Jim did the talking aspect of it, it allowed me to feel the undercurrents there
Mm.
that were maybe not talked about, and they came out as well in what was a sort of sung poem, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then we gave it to them, and they took it home and used to play it to
Interesting.
reawaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of good responses from that. It was
Huh.
called Healing Songs.
Professor Brown. You know,
My
Professor
my
Brown.
mother my mother was didn't like the fact that he thought people ought to recognize my son, and so uh, he's done all of this in music, and he's got his master's thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I know that he's worth a PhD. So from there on, whenever a letter went out, she always wrote Arthur Brown, PhD. And I get all these people believing it. So when the letters came in,
Wow.
I was awarded by my mother.
Dr. Brown. Well, she was very proud of you.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. Um, did you know Hendrix? Did you know Jimi Hendrix?
I sang with him,
Right.
and we were forming a band with it was going to have the experience,
Right.
Noel and Mitch, and also Vincent, my keyboard player, Vincent Crane.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he wanted to do this thing, which was some classical chords,
Hmm.
uh, recorded with strings, etc., playing in the background, long held chords, um, and a theatrical person at the front singing, because at that point he still didn't like his own singing.
I know. I don't get that. You
He
know?
wanted to have a big voice,
Right.
and he didn't, but it was the great voice in its own
Sure.
style.
It was.
But he liked, and we did. There was a place in New York then called Steve Paul's Scene,
Mm-hmm.
and it was one of the places where it was the leading place in New York for visiting musicians go down after playing, say. So at 1 in the morning, you might get John Lee Hooker, Hendrix, and we had a week with me singing with Hendrix.
Wow.
And improvise. We did totally improvised sessions. Not like, okay, we've got a structure, we'll improvise around that. No, we improvised the structures on the spot as well, and we played 1.5 and sometimes a 2-hour set, just non-stop, letting rip, and that was just an amazing height of energy, and so I got to know him through that. But we'd also played with him because he was on Track Records.
Right.
When he did the Savile, I opened for him with John's Children that had Mark Bolan as the lead singer. And we played the Savile twice, but also did some other concerts because it was arranged. And it was Track Records who wanted to put Hendrix and myself together as a super group, really.
Sure,
sure. Unfortunately, Vincent, somebody spiked him, and he was recovering from that because he was a very delicate mental state all the time. It wasn't, but he was on the edge, in a beautiful way. He was so funny all the time. He could sit down at the piano and improvise for hours. I mean, just unbelievable. But he had to go and be treated for I think 4 or 5 months, and
wow.
By the end of that, that was gone. Hendrix decided, okay, I was going to go with this show with the big classical chords with huge projections because he wanted that theatrical thing. And we would write, I went round to his hotel. He was already beginning to write for it. He wrote it in a very strange way because he had, the musical stave paper, and there were, he was writing it, trying to get this tune, and so there were about 5 notes, 6 notes, and then he'd throw the paper away, not satisfied with it. So when I arrived this one evening, there were about 35 papers around him, and he was still trying to get it to go to the place that he did. I don't think he naturally read music normally.
Right.
So so we got partly way there, and then because Vincent didn't want, couldn't do it, and I started to think as well, we could do this. Also, however, I've got my own direction I want to go in, and so so it never happened. And he went instead of going further out in his search for roots, Western music, classical, blah blah blah. He went back to the blues trio, and did that, and that was his roots. So cool.
Nobody recorded that session with you and Jimmy at the club?
No, I've had 1 or 2 people write in and say they were in the audience.
Right.
It wasn't, it would be an audience of about, possibly 100, 200 people. That was it. It was not a big thing. And I got one letter saying that he still remembered it because for him, his perception of the whole set was that it was a festival of joy. We were just bursting with this beautiful energy.
Wow.
And so, no, I've never managed to find a copy, but it's not impossible that we did record it. So if anybody's listening and they have it, please let us know.
We'll put the feelers out for sure. I've heard, talking to so many people that knew Hendrix, I've heard so many different things that the direction he was going to go in. One was he was going to join Emerson, Lake and Palmer. The other was he was going to get into fusion, like kind of like a Mahavishnu type of thing. I heard so many different things,
Well, I think in a way he was not copying, but following the same route as Coltrane.
Right.
So who first of all did look at Western music and then thought, oh, I want to go back deeper than that. And in his case, it was India, that he went to. And so I think Hendrix would have explored all of that.
Mm-hmm.
He would have gone into world music in a big way, because he would have been able to stretch himself in all the directions that those musicians play.
Yeah.
And I think he would have found it, a huge food for his musical soul.
Yeah, and you as his voice, that would have been incredible. You have the big voice. You would have fit right in, man. That would have been awesome.
It would, because he pulled different things out of you, whether you play with that. But there you go.
Yeah. Jimi Hendrix doing prog rock with Arthur Brown. How cool would that be, huh?
Well, you were mentioned doing a blues album with Buddy Guy. Maybe that would go in a
exactly. That's right.
I do remember once listening to the BBC and Little Richard, before there was really a public noticing of anything like prog, did an album of which he played part on the BBC live, and it was a very adventurous. It wasn't like Richard the Rock and Roller. It was prog.
Really?
The next thing I knew, he'd gone back to festivals wanted.
That's it.
All of those.
Exactly. They always go back to the roots because that's what they think that's what the people want, and that's the money maker. But it's a shame, because they got.
Well, it depends what people, because when all those people, when they start, they start in a particular scene, and they play for that, and there's a small audience to begin. Like UFO that gave birth to all those big bands. There's a small audience that love it. And that allows you to pull out what they are interested in hearing.
Exactly.
What you've got to give them. And so, I think aiming to go straight into a huge audience may not be the right way to go.
Right. You got to start out small again.
Yeah.
You're right. Like if you're going to do Tom Jones, you got to start small again. Tom Jones, you got to start all over again, You got to get that audience going. Progressive Tom Jones by Arthur Brown.
That would be wonderful, yeah. Golly.
You got to do Delilah.
You did have me sing on his show.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that. You were on the show. That was cool. Yeah. You should have sung a James Bond theme too. You could have done a good James Bond theme, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think I would do a better version now
Right. I think
than I
so.
did then. I've got a lot looser in my phrasing and everything. That's because what people may forget
Mm-hmm.
is that Tom Jones, when he was first singing, and he supported the Beatles at the
That's right.
Cavern,
Yep.
and he did things like Chills and Fever,
Uh-huh.
the the early rock songs. He was a monster rock singer
Yeah.
before he became a balladeer.
That's right.
He could outsing most of them.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
got a hell of a voice. You're kind of in that line of people with that kind of voice, you know?
Well, that's a flattery indeed.
Well, you are. You've got a great voice, and you still do. Arthur, here's a question I've asked you before several times. I'm going to ask it again. If you had a Field of Dreams wish, like the movie, to perform or collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be?
um, One thing that I've always looked forward to, and we almost manage it, is working with Stevie Wonder,
Mm-hmm.
because I think his um, adventure
Mm-hmm.
musically is quite astounding, and
Yes.
just the high quality and where it comes from in his heart.
Thank you, Arthur. Special thanks to Billy James of Glass Onion PR for arranging this interview with Arthur Brown. Purchase the latest release by Arthur Brown entitled Monsters Ball. Monsters Ball will be available in all formats starting October 21st, but you can pre-order your copy now. Also, Arthur Brown's solo album, Long, Long Road, is available now at Amazon.com. And let me tell you, man, I gave you both albums 5 stars. For more information about Arthur Brown, you can visit www.thegodofhellfire.com, his official website. Also, he's on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Arthur Brown Music. Thanks for joining us on Interviewing the Legends. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.